CGI just finished up and it got me pumped up. So you know what I did? I signed up for another tournament. But I need some training bodies fast, and the best way for me to prepare is that I need to beat up as many people as possible. So I went to an open mat and I tried to tap out every single person in that gym. Let's see how I did.
Now this may prove to be a stupid idea, but I found the biggest guy possible for the first victim of this challenge. We can tell for how much he's driving forward while hand fighting at the same time, his weight is not where it's supposed to be back on his hips. So as he continues to drive, I shove his head and leg through so I can easily get him to fumble over, and I debate if I should go for the ankle lock or if I should go for front head. Clearly I decided to latch onto the neck instead, hoping I can end this one early with the guillotine, but when he shows good defense I have to instead circle behind him so I can maintain top position. It seems like anytime you grapple with somebody over 190 pounds, the fat man roll is in their arsenal. I was ready for it and now I'm able to scramble and stay on top of him, floating from one position into the next. While in the front head, I'm trying to dig at his chin, but he's doing a good job hand fighting, constantly peeling my hands, so I stand up to stay behind him. But look at how big that ass is. I throw all my weight forward so I can keep him off his feet. Naturally, as I go for that, he starts looking for the same fat man roll as before, so I use the weight of my own badonkadonk to keep my base level. But I make a big blunder by trying to wrestle ride him by going under into the armpits and then switching off to the front head, and he just stands up. I'm running out of time before this 320-pound Goliath starts to wear me down and I have so many more matches I have to go through. So I tell myself I have to submit him and I have to do it quickly. I notice that passing isn't his strong suit because he's not pressuring me with his head and I still have a lot of control of my own posture. Because I'm pushing him with my left hand, he decides he's going to throw himself forward, and to me, this looks like a good guillotine opportunity. And if you're looking for some black magic, notice my guard isn't locked, but I use my butterfly hook to continuously elevate him. He wanted to go that way because it's the correct way to defend the choke, but it gave me an easy opportunity to get on top. Then I can go right into mount. As soon as I lock my hands together, it's sleepy time for him. Competitor number 2 is a purple belt and he's also bigger, so I gotta track him off the list as fast as I can. I blessed him with a great positioning by taking bottom and letting him work into my butterfly guard. No way he screws this one up, right? Well, it looks like I lied. This was supposed to be a good spot for him, but I actually manhandled him and swept him over with an over-under sweep, and I get to maintain strong chest-to-chest connections while having an underhook on the same side. It's at this point when I'm smothering him, my armpits are so close to his nose that he's questioning his whole life decision to start jiu-jitsu. The only thing worse would be if we were north-south and my crotch is on top of his head. Oh, look at that. I was trying to think of what submission I should get on him to finish the challenge, but from where his nose is at, I think he will accept anything other than the smell of fondue. Thankfully, he's more than just a dead fish on bottom and he's shoving my hips away so we can create some space. But I wrap around his stomach and I decide to go into a wrestling ride by pinning his wrist down. I call this one inmate control because you're flattening them out, making them want to quit on life. Now I feel pretty good here because I snuck in my other hand while controlling the wrist, and while I'm threatening the choke, he actually gives the thumbs up saying he's pretty good. Let's see how long that lasts. Looks like he lasted about 3 seconds, which is pretty impressive for some men. For my next challenger, I have a purple belt named Joe who absolutely loves the toe hold. And when I say loves it, I mean that he'll completely drop a dominant position just to go for a footlock, even if he's the one that ends up tapping. He's that committed. Now something you're going to notice from Joe is he's trying to use his head to pressure me as much as possible while passing. But he has his hands low to the mat, so I'm able to lock up double overhooks. This normally isn't threatening because they can still post, but I'd love if I could get some balloon sweep armbar off on them, so I'm going to go for it more than once even if it doesn't work the first or second time. As Joe continues to drive into me, I bring my foot to his hips, I launch him into the air, but because his coordination is better than a toddler, I can't keep him off his feet and hands. What I can do is use this nasty scoop grip to get underneath his leg and keep rotating towards his head. He already wants to go in that direction, so I take it as an easy way to sweep him and end up on top looking for my first submission. I truly believe the ankle lock is the dark horse of all footlocks, being more powerful than even a heel hook. And I say that because it allows me to maintain control while not fully committing to the attack, whereas when you go for a heel hook, I feel like you're already in the thick of it. I use the ankle lock to get on top of Joe to enter camping, but Joe just pushes me off and he starts going to De La Hiva. Unfortunately for Joe, I don't really respect De La Hiva if it's not in gi because it's so much harder for him to maintain control over me. As long as I can keep my legs far apart, I can always disengage his hooks. Then I can re-enter my own terms, such as now when I'm attacking, looking for the ankle lock again. But before I can get my legs in the equation, Joe starts pushing off and makes it tough for me. But I've got a secret up my sleeves. While Joe is probably wondering what my hand is doing here, I use as an easy entry to hook onto his ankle, throw the legs in, and it's Jover. Now, to keep things fair, I go up against Kari next, who is Joe's wife. I need to let everybody know that I won't just abuse men, I'll abuse their wives too. And I get this family dispute rolling by pushing her into half guard as she tried to come my back, but she couldn't control my hips. Kari does have a Kimura on my far side arm, but I use a little bit of manpower just to crush her ribs and bring her down to the mat and free my arm at the same time. I've recently started watching some of Joseph Chen's passing, and I have to practice all of them on lower belts first. So Kari has the unfortunate dilemma of being the training dummy. As I pressure forward, I beat her up worse than the pay gap by keeping heavy chest-to-chest pressure and moving into side control. The added benefit of this pass is I still have a far side underhook. You get to use chest-to-chest pressure to keep them flat and start crushing them, but you also can isolate their arms setting up attacks like Kimura, armbar, guillotines, you name it. I go for one of my favorite one-handed guillotine variants, which you can find in my guillotine instructional with a discount using this code, and the second I go into mount, while still having the arm isolated, all I need to do is bring my elbow to my rib and I get the tap. Let me take a quick pause to say I'm looking spiffy today because I'm wearing gear from xmartial.com. I've got the full suit, I'm looking good and feeling good, and you can as well with a discount if you use promo code Tyler10. They recently just added this new anime section which I know will appeal to a lot of you nerds out there, or you can look through their new arrivals to see what else they've been cooking. I personally think their shorts are really underrated, being extremely comfortable but also applicable for jiu-jitsu. So use code Tyler10 and pick yourself up some great gear. Now enough splurging about the gear I'm wearing, look at the position I'm in. I'm in bottom front head, which is normally where I put my opponents. So if you're wondering how do I deal with this position, the number one thing you need to do is get off your knees. Now the difference is he decides to go for an overwrap and then transition to a single leg, but I have great balance, so as he tries to drive me down, I use the momentum to push him over, putting myself on top once I can win this scramble by hooking onto his leg, which prevents him from standing up. Now that I won the scramble, I can go into my camping position where I take my right knee and start weighing down his right leg. From here, it's important to use my head like a battering ram or to keep him flat on his back. After I pushed enough of my head, I was able to put his shoulders to the mat, and it's going to set up my next pass where I roll over the top with the guillotine. It's still a battle trying to escape his legs, but if I can threaten the choke, which I do by going for the same underhook we saw earlier and threatening the one-handed guillotine, I know he's going to let go because he's more concerned about the choke than he is about holding guard. He makes the right call by going north-south. This disconnects my grip from his artery, but I'm going to change it up by following him into side control. Then I'm going to scoop up his leg with my right one so I can go into mount. Now it's all over. I do the same elbow pinch we saw earlier, and by walking my right hand across the mat and making this even tighter on the artery, he decides to tap. For this next round, I immediately took the bomb position once again. And I like to think he won't get guillotined, considering it says guillotine gang right on my rash guard, but let's see how it actually turns out. He has a really wide base, so it's going to be tough for me to scoop up any leg, and it's also hard for me to wrestle up because he's driving into me at the same time. These are one of my tenets that I do while I'm guard passing, but I have ways around it. Normally you don't want to be straight with your back, but I put my own shoulders on the mat because it makes it easier for me to rotate him with my knees. Now his legs are a lot closer to me and I can start working underneath them so I can get some elevation and start working my own sweeps. But you know what's even better than a sweep? Why not just attack an ankle guillotine? When I elevated him, I made sure to keep my legs in between his so I could isolate his right leg. Now I'm continuously pushing forward with my shins to keep his back on the mat, but I'm using my hands to work on his grips so I can break his leg apart from his left leg. You'll see he's trying everything to prevent this ankle lock before I go Genghis Khan on him, destroying his entire village, but once I'm able to separate his legs by sprawling out, I also bring my hand in and I can go to my butt. Now I just readjust the lock and I get an ankle guillotine for the tap. Now there are more people I rolled with, and yes, I beat them as well. But does it mean anything if I don't tap out the coach? No, I don't think so. But this one was a lot more hotly contested. Back and forth action, going at each other the entire time, and if you really want to see how this one plays out, make sure to stay tuned for the next one.